and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Quick Six, your home for 6 weekly picks, NFL, college football. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. Brian, before we get into this upcoming week, we always go through what last week was, review our card, all that good stuff. But my God, did we have the most absurd weekend of college football, or NFL, I guess, starting with Saturday, where I had the Colts plus 4.5, 33-0, and I had to sweat out the fourth quarter as they continued to implode upon themselves. And somehow the Vikings only win by 3, and I cover, and it's fine. But my God, and that was only the precursor to what Saturday was going to be, or what Sunday was going to be.
I will say, so that game, I jumped on the Vikings live line at plus 28.5 right when the second half kicked off. I was in Vegas, so I got to do it legally.
Imagine taking the money line.
Oh yeah, I mean, I in no way thought I was gonna. It would have been like a $5 bet, but I jumped all over that plus 28.5.
But if it was like 40-1, that $5 bet would be nice.
That's true. I probably should have dabbled in that a little bit, but no, yeah. Just seeing that game the way that it went, like you said, was just a precursor to the absolute madness that we were about to see.
Well, and it's funny too because I was like, the Vikings are only down 20-something points. It feels like they should be down a hell of a lot more. And this game is close, and they're kicking weird field goals, and then I didn't actually think they would be able to come all the way back and actually win. But I was like, this could get somewhat interesting. But then I think the Colts got it up to 30, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's obviously out the window. Turns out it wasn't. Turns out they very much in the cards. And then we'll go to Sunday, where quite possibly the most preposterous ending of a football game I've ever seen. So when the Raiders were up right before halftime, I took the Patriots on the money line plus 450. They got up 24-17. I was like, this is great. I also jumped on the Bengals money line, which when they were down to the Bucks, which RIP your bet. I don't want to talk about that one. I was like, oh man, this is going to be a great afternoon. And then the Raiders score on a clearly out of bounds play that wasn't out of bounds apparently.
I wanted to hit on that real quick. I don't understand how it's possible in 2022 that they had 2 effing camera angles to look at. Then the only camera angle that showed his foot out of bounds was zoomed out times 1,000,000, and it was blurry. I don't understand how
I mean, you could see they showed the replay, and obviously I'm going to be a little biased because I had money on the Patriots. But and then this is on the heels of the World Cup final where there's so many freaking sensors that you can tell if a guy is offsides by a quarter of a millimeter. And in the NFL, it's like, no, let's put senior citizens out there who can't see 5 feet in front of them to decide freaking bets and games and teams that are on the borderline of making the playoffs. Like all this shit.
It's disgusting. It really is.
It's absurd. So yeah, that was, and I mean, granted, like Jacoby Myers, what are you doing?
I was just going to say, we hadn't even got to the craziness of the ending of the game.
It was 24-24, on a weird play that everybody's like, they're out of bounds. Why are we? And then, oh no, actually we're unsure. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it. And then the final play, and then Chandler Jones just truck sticks. He's doing his best Derrick Henry impression on Mac Jones, and walks in the end zone. And it's just a walk-off. It's the Raiders have this ability to bring everyone into their nonsense.
Yep.
Whenever you play them.
Well, especially too, you would think a team as disciplined normally as the Patriots are, that would never happen to them. And the fact that it's clear that they either lost track of what the score was and they thought maybe they were losing, or they just weren't aware, like, hey, let's just take this to overtime.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers was trying to YOLO ball his way out of it. I don't know. It's the Bill Belichick problem. And, obviously we don't want to get too crazy after 1 week, but I do have this very weird theory that Belichick retires at the end of the season and Mike Vrabel is their coach in 2023. The Titans season is going to garbage. Malik Willis will be under center. This is clearly a team that's going to be rebuilding.
By the way.
I don't think it's the most absurd thing you've ever heard. And maybe Derrick Henry goes with them. I don't know. But for a couple first rounders and Ramondre Stevenson for Derrick Henry and Mike Vrabel, who says no?
Ooh, man, you're spitting some spicy takes here. I like it.
Wild ass shit here on a couple days before the weekend. But Brian, let's recap the card and then we can give the people bets for the weekend, because I have a few bets. I also have a couple props that I'm leaning on. And that's just some other random stuff. So I got my 3 bets. I got a little extra nugget for the people. It is the holiday weekend. Let's give out some more winners. So 3 picks, 2 winners. Dolphins plus 7.5. That was a very nice game. Quite possibly the most fun game I watched all weekend, start to finish. It was definitely compelling. Obviously, we had some good games all throughout the weekend. Wild games. I don't know if they're necessarily good, but wild games for sure.
Yeah.
The Giants, maybe there was some questionable calls at the end of that game, but one way or another, that game was going to cover for the Giants. So Giants plus 4.5, win-win. And then the Jets.
I thought they were going to win that game outright. That's probably the worst defensive play that the Jets have had in 8 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not like an athletic tight end. Like, it was just some plotter.
It was a complete breakdown in coverage.
And I honestly thought Mike White was going to play that game. When we talked, I thought, oh, it's going to be Mike White season, and the Zach Wilson experience is over. It turns out that was not the case. So 2-1 weeks, up 6 units, down 4 units. So positive week on overall. So I am not going to complain. We could take a look at your card. The over for Cowboys Jags was one of the most rocking chair wins. I believe it went over in the third quarter.
Yeah, and as soon as the Cowboys got up 27-10, I was basically counting the dollar bills at that point, knowing that Jacksonville was going to, put the pedal to the metal. They were going to start going on offense. The Cowboys defense has been bend don't break for the last 2+ seasons. So you knew it was only a matter of time before Jacksonville could find the end zone and contribute to the scoring.
Yep. And sure enough, they did. And then your last 2, man, my God, you were on the end of some pretty gnarly losses. Cards Broncos. That game was the most underwhelming. Nothing happening. 3.5 quarters of just garbage. And in the fourth quarter, it turned into like a game of touch football. And they scored 20
points in the fourth quarter between these 2 shitty offenses
to cover by like 2 or 3 points. Like, it's not like it was close and all of a sudden they scored 20 points. So
yeah,
that was a bad beat on your end. And then we talked Bucks Bengals. Bucks got up 17-3,
17-0. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, man, I should really go back and hedge with the Bengals right now, because
I took Bengals money line plus 350, and my God, that was a nice cash. So that was a fun live line to sweat. All being said, still a productive week for the 2 of us. We keep staying in the green. So I am now 30-18 on the season, 62%.
That's a great winning percentage.
Having a really strong season, making up for some of those NASCAR woes, and obviously not as strong for you, but still pretty solid. Speaking of NASCAR, if you are into betting NASCAR or just want some more outlets for betting, we did do a little season preview for the championship, as well as a quick look at Daytona 500. So if you are interested in that, I will link it below, as well as just go check out our NASCAR feed. It's a fun feed to look at. But Brian, let's jump into it and let's talk some picks. I made a few picks, and then I have some thoughts of some player props that I'll give out at the end. So
and I have a couple as well.
Okay,
there's going to be some weather playing a major.
It's holiday season. Let's hand out some winners. So I'm going to start with my first one, and I know this is going to be a fade the twining, but I am going with the Philadelphia Eagles plus 5. This line has moved significantly. Speaking of, I got to rant for 5 seconds. Jalen Hurts, 55-1 MVP ticket, big favorite, minus 100, minus 150, minus 200, wherever you looked for it. Fine, everything's good. No one's going to come steal his award. And of course, he gets hurt randomly at the end of a Bears game that's a blowout. And now he's like 3 or 4 to 1 to win the MVP. Nothing as good is going to happen because Gardner Minshew plays well. They're going to be like, well, see, it could have been anybody under center with this Eagles team. Gardner Minshew doesn't play well. The Eagles have no reason to rush Hurts back, so he could just like sit out for a couple of games.
I was just going to say, like, just to like tell people how meaningless, almost in a sense, this game against the Cowboys is for Philadelphia. They need one more win to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC. To clinch the NFC East. Now, even if they play poorly this week and say they somehow sneak out a victory, Jalen Hurts is probably not playing the rest of the regular season because they're going to clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC. And the one thing I will say about that, though, that kind of may be a good thing for Jalen Hurts futures holders, like the fact that they were able to compile this 13-1 record leading into this week with him at the helm, seeing what he's done all season, and then they can just sit back and, throttle it down heading into the playoffs, that they basically ran away with this conference. That is definitely going to play to his favor come MVP voting time, whether he's hurt or not.
Yeah, but the problem is it gets a little narrative based, and that is my concern.
Yeah, but the thing is nobody in the NFC is anywhere near him in this conversation.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes still has to compete with Tua Tagovailoa, Josh Allen. He's got multiple people. Joe Burrow is making a run here late in the season.
Who I placed a nice little wager on today, I think at 6 or 7 to 1, just to kind of hedge because he is the story that could thrive over the next couple weeks, and all of a sudden he is the guy jumping up to the top of the list. So
and I
did grab a little piece of that.
I was just gonna say nobody outside of Mahomes voters are taking votes away from Jalen Hurts, where Mahomes voters are getting stolen from people that want to go to Joe Burrow or to Josh Allen. So I still think there's a chance that Hurts gets this award.
And there's a possibility that Mahomes gets the passing record, most yards in the season, with only 1,000-yard pass catcher being Travis Kelce. I mean, Juju could get there, but that tells you like they lose Tyreek Hill, and he has nobody who can get him 1,000 yards outside of the guy that we know, and he still has the most
this year, like.
Right, but that's the thing is like he's putting it together. Like if Brady was doing this with his jamokes, they would be like, "Oh, amazing, Tom Brady MVP." So, and honestly, there was some realistic, like very rational arguments that Mahomes probably should have been the guy anyways, but because Hurts was a little unexpected. So anyways, back on track. Like let's get this train back down the track. But this line opened like 1.5 for the Cowboys. It's now up to 5. I think Gardner Minshew has shown in the past that he can be a very serviceable option, and he's never had this kind of serious talent.
And this team is much better than the Eagles team that he started with last year against the Cowboys late in the year. So you can't look at last year's game as like a measuring stick to what we're going to see this weekend, especially 100%. With what's on the line.
And we saw last week that the Cowboys defense is not nearly as good, especially in the secondary.
They're so injured right now. I don't think people realize like Cowboys are missing 2 of their top 3 corners. They're missing their middle linebacker.
The guy who's calling out the plays.
Van Der Esch, like safety Jaron Kearse is now banged up. Micah Parsons hasn't practiced in 2 days because he's sick. Like this team is banged up.
Yep. And the Cowboys want to run the football. Dak has not been good. Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott is their path to having a strong game.
And that's how you attack the Eagles. Like that's how you beat Philadelphia.
This is going to be a little bit of a lower scoring, kind of quiet game. I kind of like the under here. I know it is a fast track, and there is some concern that maybe the passing game gets there, but I think this is going to be a lower scoring. I think both teams are very happy to run the ball. And I think that, it's a game that is probably a field goal game either way. And if I'm getting more than that with one team, I will happily take it.
Yeah, and just real quick too, there's something to be said about the fact that if the Giants and Washington lose this week, I'm pretty sure the Cowboys are pretty much set in that 5 seed. Like they can't really move up or move down the remainder of the season. So I mean, if they're losing double digits in the second half, they're probably not going hard at this.
It really seems like 80% of the NFC is kind of set at this point. Like the Eagles are probably going to be the 1, the Bucks are going to be the 4, the Cowboys are going to be the 5. It's really the Niners and Minnesota battling for 2, 3, and then figuring out who that last team or 2 is into the playoffs, and that's it. So let's talk about one of those teams battling for one of the top 2 spots, and that is the Minnesota Vikings, coming off of that historic comeback down 33-0. Now they're home again, facing a Giants team that got me to cover town last week. You're going to take the home team -3.5 with our friends over at FanDuel.
Yeah, look, the Giants beat Washington, but what does that say? Like, it's 2 crappy NFC East teams that don't scare anybody. Minnesota at home is going to throttle this Giants team that really has nothing on offense outside of Saquon Barkley. Minnesota is getting healthier on defense while the Giants are still dealing with injuries. I think this is a game where Minnesota, instead of them falling behind by 33 points, I think they jump out to like a double-digit lead here pretty early, and they sustain that pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, I like that call quite a bit. Obviously, Daniel Jones will have to run in order to keep this game even somewhat close. And the way to attack the Vikings is to throw on them. And Daniel Jones and Darius Slayton ain't getting that job done. I was just
going to say, wait, Darius Slayton and
so I think the Vikings winning by 4 is very much in the cards. I'm going to go with a little bit of a interesting take. I'm going to take the New England Patriots off of that horrific loss, +3.5. Bet Rivers has it at -114 right now against the Cincinnati Bengals. A little bit of a play on, we saw New England at their worst. We saw the Bengals come back and look amazing. I think this is a kind of a spot game. We've seen good and bad New England teams. They tend to play better at home. Now that they're going to be away from the Raiders, hopefully they don't get sucked into their weird stuff. They still have talent on both sides of the ball. I think Ramondre can have a nice game here. And I think they can do kind of what Tampa did, but then like not just completely collapse on themselves in the middle of the second quarter. I think this could even be a game where the Bengals are up and kind of dominate for most of it, but only end up winning by 3. And I get the cover. The Patriots are 3 in a lot of places, so I don't love that as much. I'd still be okay with it. But if Rivers is going to give me the 3 in the hook, even with a little bit of extra juice, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, and one thing I think people fail to actually like realize after what happened in Las Vegas is that New England did a fantastic job of shutting down Devontae Adams, and I understand Cincinnati has way more weapons on the outside. But if Belichick is good at doing one thing still at this stage of his coaching career, it is game planning and scheming to shut down what the opposing team does well, or at least slow them down. So I think this is another spot where it's a slower paced game where New England is just trying to wind that clock. And, maybe like you said, they're losing by 10 late and they punch it in for a late touchdown in garbage time or something. But yeah, I like this a lot.
Yep. So perfect spot game. Great opportunity. Let's keep it moving. I love this call by you. Seattle Seahawks team total under 19 at -115 on DraftKings. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting take here by me. Even I've surprised myself here. Is like Seattle's offense has been explosive at times this year, but I think the absence of Tyler Lockett is going to be huge in this spot here. Like Kansas City already has been getting better on defense as we've gotten later in the season. I know last week was kind of an aberration. I mean, Houston's looked good the last 2 weeks against Dallas and Kansas City, and it's kind of a little bit of a trap. Kansas City is not going to fall victim to that this week at home at Arrowhead against a Pete Carroll team that they know is always going to play tough. It's basically going to be DK Metcalf and Marquise Goodwin. Like, really? Geno Smith has been fallen under a ton of pressure when he's being pressured lately. He hasn't looked as good as he did earlier in the season. And Kansas City's offense, now that they're getting healthy, I mean, they are going to be unstoppable as we move forward. And I'm going to say it again. Isaiah Pacheco, yes, he fumbled, but this dude ran for over 80 yards last week. This is going to be another spot where he's probably carrying the rock 15 to 20 times. I think he finds the end zone this week. So if you can find an anytime touchdown prop on him, I think that's a good bet as well.
Yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of, especially early in the week, getting some of those player props is hard to find. But yeah, I like the Pacheco call. I also think this is a Seahawks team that, give them credit, they had a hell of a year. They were much better than anyone ever expected. But like after last week against the Niners, I think this could be a bottom falls out game.
I was just gonna say it's almost like they've run out of gas.
Yeah,
essentially.
And the injuries are going to pile up, and they're going to have issues. And I like taking just the Seahawks because I think we get a Chiefs offense explosion game down the stretch, and this could be the spot where it happens. And if you take the full game under, you might get torched by Mahomes and company.
I was going to say, you run the risk of losing the bet on Kansas City's points alone. So
yeah, maybe you get a pick six or fumble six or something else that just puts it over. So I like that call quite a bit. Let's go to the old trusty Atlanta Falcons. This is a bet that I don't love quite as much, and it was close to getting the cut. But I think at the end of the day, I'm not going to be scared because this is a Ravens team that I just don't think is that good. They're significantly injured. They have injuries all over the offense, all over the defense.
Even worse today.
Tyler Huntley might not even play. This is a Ravens team that hasn't won by more than 2 points since Lamar played against Carolina. So like Tyler Huntley's not covering games, and they're still giving him these numbers. And I know Desmond Ridder looked like absolute garbage last week, and it's his first game on the road, but I don't think, I think this is going to be a gross game, and maybe I should just take the under as it's like 13-6. But if I'm getting more than a touchdown with the Falcons, I think both teams are going to want to run the ball. Ridder made a couple plays. Like I said, he was not good, but Huntley hasn't really been good either for the last month. And I love J.K. Dobbins. If he runs all over the Falcons and he's the reason why they cover, then cool. But like Sammy Watkins ain't getting you to cover town, and Demarcus Robinson and Tyler Huntley aren't getting you to cover town, and Mark Andrews has been on a milk carton for the last month and a half. So it's like, what am I really worried about here? So
exactly.
I will take the Falcons on the road plus the touchdown and a half. It's minus 107 on PointsBet, which shouts to PointsBet for the nice juice there. So that's where my head's at.
Yeah, I absolutely love this selection. I was all over this earlier in the week because I think both of these teams do what each other does. Like they're almost a mirror image of each other in the sense that they both want to run the ball a ton. They want to have their quarterback get out, be mobile, and that type of sense. And when you look at these rosters on offense, I'm going to give the edge to Atlanta in terms of skill position players. I mean, Drake London is still really good. Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson is a fantastic duo in the backfield. Baltimore, Gus the Bus Edwards hasn't looked anywhere near what we saw last year. J.K. Dobbins has looked great, but he clearly doesn't have the same speed. And then now if you're going to get Anthony Brown back there playing quarterback, like this, Baltimore's offense is in for it this week. And also of note today on practice report, Calais Campbell and Marcus Peters didn't practice. Those are two main cogs on this defensive front for the Ravens. I think this game is ugly. It's going to be crappy weather. I think this game is close all day, and both teams are on the running game. So if you got player props, head over to the running backs and the rushing game for this.
Yeah, especially carries and stuff too.
Yes.
And yeah, we're gonna get some bad weather throughout the East Coast, but not necessarily the Northeast. Kind of more that like Carolina up to Baltimore, kind of the Midwesty area into like where Indy is and stuff. But your third and final play, the Tampa Bay Bucks minus 7.5 at the Arizona Cardinals. I texted you earlier today. I think there is value on the Bucks to potentially come out of the NFC. I know it's been an absolute shit show.
Disgusting,
but Jalen Hurts is hurt. Brock Purdy is Brock Purdy. Dak hasn't been good. who else? I mean, I don't trust
Minnesota doesn't scare
Kirk
anybody.
Cousins. Like
Yeah, no.
Jared Goff, if he gets in, like who are you really worried about? Now, granted, maybe the Bucs just stink and it's a bad bet, but I think there is a path. I think if they can get through Dallas, they have a very good chance at going all the way to the Super Bowl, as crazy as it sounds. And at
And
14,
I think
15 to 1, I think at this point it's worth a shot.
Yeah, and I think if that is going to happen, like this is going to have to be the week that it begins. Like I thought it was going to be last week, which is the reason why I took Tampa Bay with the 3
and you were
points.
right for like 1 quarter and a half.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden Cincinnati turned on from last year's Super Bowl run. But no, like this week they're playing an Arizona Cardinals team who's going to be playing Trace McSorley at quarterback. Tampa Bay does really well at stopping opposing running backs, which is basically what Arizona is going to have to do here to prevent Tampa Bay from just all-out blitzing McSorley, which I think he's made one or two starts in his NFL career. This is a bad spot for this Arizona offense who hasn't been able to get anything going, even with Colt McCoy. So I think Tampa Bay runs away with this. I think this is a good spot too. Like if you have Tom Brady in fantasy or you have these receivers, I think maybe this is a get right spot for him. I think Tampa Bay this week throttles the Cardinals, and then maybe next week that bet, looking at them to potentially come out of the NFC, is dropping a little bit, and people start to talk, oh, hey, maybe the Buccaneers, as they're getting healthier on defense, can get back on track.
Yeah, so and we talked about a little bit with Seattle, this could be a bottom falls out game for Arizona where they just, and I know they've looked bad anyways.
The trap door is already open for them. Like
there's stuff falling out the back of the van already, and Trace McSorley is trying to get.
They're hanging on by 2 fingers right now on the ledge.
Yeah, so if the Bucs are good, this is a game they should win by double digits.
Exactly.
So yeah, hopefully that comes to fruition. Let's recap our bets. Let's give the people our best bet, and then we'll give them some player props on the way out of here. So I have 3 total bets. If I can get my mouse to work, here we go. I have the Eagles +5 at the Dallas Cowboys. I'm gonna go very vanilla this week. I'm putting 3 units there. Patriots +3.5 versus the Bengals. I'm gonna go 2 units there, just because I'm a little worried that Joe Burrow keeps the streak alive and looks amazing. And I'm gonna put 4 units on the Falcons +7.5. I just think they're very similar. We talked about it. We got 2 bird teams. They're going to face off. They're very similar rosters at this point. So I'm very happy to do that. So that I have the Falcons +7.5 for 4 units. I have the Patriots +3.5 for 2 units, and the Eagles +5 units. I'm on your card and your units.
Yeah, so I'm starting my card off with the Minnesota Vikings to cover the 3.5 against the New York Giants over at FanDuel. I'm going 4 units on that play. I feel pretty strongly about this. My next bet is going to be the Seahawks team total under 19.5 in Kansas City over at DK at -115. I'm going just with 2 units on this, just because you never know what kind of weird crap will happen on special teams or defense. And 2, like, they have been able to throw the ball in Kansas City. That's their worst part of their defense. And then my last bet, I'm going to the desert, Arizona, Christmas Day for my last Christmas present, and laying the 7.5 with the Buccaneers and Tom Brady, and going 4 units on that play.
I love it. Piggybacking off of your Chiefs play, I think Mahomes getting the record over 298.5 is very much an interesting play for me. I like Gabe Davis over receiving yards. I could not get it at the time of recording, but Davis has had his big games against zone defenses, a defense that he gets to face this week. When he has to be in man coverage, he tends to not do as well. And I think his number is going to be a little bit lower. Like his boom bust rate, like his ceiling is so much higher than whatever the number is going to be, that I think his over is very much in play as well. Brian, what other props do you potentially have?
Yeah, so I hit on it earlier, but Isaiah Pacheco, like right now, just the one I could see at DK, his yards total is only at 68.5. And this is a guy that's seeing 15 plus carries in each of the last, I think it's 3 to 4 weeks. He's clearly the primary ball carrier here. This is not going to be a game where they're losing like they were against Houston and having to use Jerick McKinnon as much. I think they're going to save McKinnon a little bit for the playoffs as we start to wind the season down. So smash play that over 68.5. And then New Orleans and Cleveland, we're looking at a potential of a game being 0 degrees with 20 to 30 mile per hour winds. Both of these teams are going to be running the ball. So hit on Alvin Kamara's rushing yards total, 68.5. If you can find Taysom Hill rushing yards totals, hit on that. And sneaky play here, if you can find anywhere that has Kareem Hunt lines posted before injuries get injury designations go out. Nick Chubb has not practiced for 2 days, so I love Kareem Hunt's rushing yards total, potential anytime touchdown with him as well.
His anytime touchdown right now at DK is plus 450. So
well
smash.
Bet that. Yeah, because
Kareem Hunt or Isaiah Pacheco, I like that call quite a bit. His touchdown is like plus 100, a little bit, maybe like minus 110, depending on where you look. So, but you could parlay that with.
I was going to say I would parlay that his yards with the touchdown for him.
And he's like 5-1 to score twice, which I think is very much in the cards as well.
That would be very beneficial for lots of people this week.
FTN has a really good prop shop if you're looking for numbers, so you can always check that out. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert. Enjoy the holidays. Hopefully we can stack some winners.
Yes.
And we will be back next week.